Welcome to the In Love with PMDD podcast. I am your host, Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist, and I help you stop the monthly PMDD breakups. PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. It is in approximately 1 in 5 women, and it makes you want to break up with your partner approximately 1 to 2 weeks before your period every single month. So as someone who has suffered with PMDD for over 18 years, I dedicated my doctorate practice to helping partners navigate those monthly PMDD breakups with everything from attachment styles, triggers, sensitivity to noise, sensitivity to touch, all of the things that you really struggle with when you're in PMDD. And I also dedicated my dissertation to a phenomenological study of the relationship experiences of partners of individuals who suffer with premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So I'm not just here to help the sufferer, the one who is suffering with PMDD. I am here for the partners as well. So if you need those private sessions, make sure you go to inlovewithpmdd.com and get those tools. So let's get into this week's PMDD trauma transformational tools that is going to help you stop the monthly breakups and stop the suffering and stress in your PMDD relationship. Let's get into it. I'm recording. So I am on day 15 of PMDD. And me and my partner are going through it. So I'm like, let me just come on here. This is going to be a little bit longer than my normal chat, but me and my PMDD partner have been really going through it. And I remember thinking this month, this one's going to break us because we've been going through months and months and months of the cycle of like fighting, shutting down, one person wanting to talk about it, the other person not wanting to talk about it. So I don't know if you're like me, where I need to kind of take some space and time before I'm ready to talk about a lot of the conflict. And my PMDD partner has an anxious attachment style. So a lot of the times he was wanting to go straight into talking about it. And it was causing us to have so much conflict, so many fights because I wasn't ready, right? I remember trying to use one of my PMDD trauma transformational tools and really saying, I need to take some space. I need to take some time to really think about, a lot of things because I was going through the PMDD and I had all the intrusive thoughts and I wasn't sure what was the truth and what was a lie. And I was spinning in my head and really just trying to let him know, like, whatever's going to come out of my mouth right now, it's not going to be like something that you're going to want to hear. But he was in that space of just not understanding why I couldn't talk right now. He was like, what does that mean? What does that mean? And so we ended up having a conversation and the PMDD rage come out, and I was just like, and there was all this blaming and shaming. So you have to know when you go into PMDD, what are your things that normally come out for you? I know I tend to get really critical with my PMDD partner. I get really, really critical with my PMDD partner. I start nitpicking on specific ways that I feel like he should be treating me. And I remember he just felt like he calls it, you're going hard on me. You're going hard on me, meaning I'm being very harsh with the words that I'm saying when I'm telling him I don't like this and I don't like that. And he can't take it. So he gets this kind of fight or flight response where he just kind of, immediately lashes out and says things and does things that he doesn't necessarily mean in the moment. But when I was telling him, just yesterday, like those hurtful words stick. When you're talking to your PMDD partner and you're really just having those moments where you're just wanting to get it all out, like you may feel better in the moment to get it out. But what happens is for the other PMDD partner, it sticks because you start to think about, one of the comments my partner was saying was like, you're so sensitive, you're so selfish and stuff like that. And I remember, asking him later on, like, did you really mean that? And he's like, no, I didn't mean it. I was just, upset and triggered in the moment. But like all after that conversation, I was sitting there questioning, like, does he really think that I'm selfish? Does he really think that I'm sensitive? So a lot of times when you're saying, those hurtful words, you're not knowing that your PMDD partner is in that place of remembering every single thing that you've been saying. And so I really got to this place where I was just like, you know what? We need to figure out what's going on. And when we were trying to get back on the same page, it's like both of us felt justified in being upset with the other person. And it was really about perspective. A lot of times the perspective that we saw in each other like was completely different. We were literally seeing the same situation a completely different way. And I remember thinking like, how dare he say that to me? And the whole time he was thinking about the frustration that he felt. He wasn't thinking about the words that he was saying. And we were just, when we were taking that space, it was almost like we were getting further and further apart. Like I could feel it. This isn't when you can kind of almost fall out of love with your PMDD partner because you're looking at the situation and you're looking at it completely differently. And if you don't take that time to really figure out what your PMDD partner is thinking, you're going to start making up stories in your mind. And that's exactly what happened. And by the time I talked to my PMDD partner again, what I was thinking that he was thinking in my mind was completely different. And he was feeling offended for a completely different reason. So a lot of times you may be thinking that my PMDD partner knows why I'm upset. They know, why I have this going on. Hey, Jasmine. And, my partner didn't know. When I literally told him all of the reasons why I was triggered and what I was upset about, he was like, what? Like, you're upset because of that? He was thinking about the situation itself. And I was like, no, because you said this to me and you said this. And it was kind of like, the more of the blaming, right? And I didn't understand there's a difference between addressing your triggers and addressing what's wrong with you and actually blaming your PMDD partner. So what I was doing was blaming. I was literally like, you did this and you did that and you did this. And instead of just literally, he said, what I want you to do is just listen to what I'm saying. He felt so overwhelmed where he couldn't even get defensive. Because I was just like going in, going in, and going in. And it was because the more I talked about my triggers, because I was in PMDD, the more my head started spinning. And I literally felt like my body heating up and it was just going over and over and over. And then this is where the breakups come in. Because you get to that point where you're talking about how much your PMDD partner has offended you. You're talking about how hurt you are. You're feeling the emotions of being hurt in the moment. And then if your PMDD partner can't take it, which mine has an anxious attachment style, he was pretty much like, fine then. Like, what do you want me to do? What's the solution, right? He's very solution based. So I don't know if you've ever been there where your partner is just really, can't take the conflict and just wants a way out. That's how my PMDD partner was. He just wanted a way out. And so he was like, so what's the solution to this? So are we done? And I was like, no, we're not done. Every conflict that you have with your PMDD partner doesn't have to turn into a breakup. But a lot of times, sometimes it does because your partner wants to get out of that spinning. They want to get out of that pattern. And what you need to do is just take quitting off the table. That's something that when we did that, it was so, 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 so helpful. Where when I say take quitting off the table, I mean take breaking up off the table. And I know that that sounds like, oh, I don't want to, do that because it may be a time where I may feel like I want to break up, but when you have breaking up as an option, it's always going to confuse you when you go into PMDD. It's always going to confuse you because you're always going to be questioning like, oh, we're going through a fight, we're going through an argument. Should we break up? Should we not break up? And it's kind of like, if you take breaking up off the table, what's up, AJ? If you take breaking up off the table, then that's one less option that you have. So when you're spinning in your head and you're having a fight, it's possible for you to just be fighting with your PMDD partner. Every fight doesn't have to end up in a breakup. There may be times where you just really need to get to the root and really deal with the things that you have going on and stop letting it just pile on top of each other. When you ignore your issues, they don't go anywhere. And then you'll be sitting there and you'll kind of just be coexisting, like you're both in the house or you're both, going to work, coming home, not really talking to each other. It doesn't go anywhere. You're always going to be in that place of having that tension and having that stress, but getting to the root of it and really recognizing that sometimes your PMDD partner sees things completely different, a completely different scenario. So Jasmine says, I've been aware of my PMDD for over 3 years and have yet to tell my husband. He has no idea. And I'm scared to tell him. Yeah, Jasmine, I remember how I told my PMDD partner because I was noticing the cyclical pattern. And that's probably what you're going through, where you're noticing you're having that same cycle every single month. And then AJ saying, my wife experienced PMDD all last week, obviously. Yeah. So Jasmine, for you, I would say make sure that you're not telling your PMDD partner when you're in PMDD, because I remember how it happened. Like I made a mistake by doing that because I kind of just blurted it out. in PMDD rage, we were having this argument, and he literally started to notice the cyclical pattern. He was like, it seems like every single month we're going through the same fight. Like, he wasn't noticing that it was cyclical in a sense of it was connected to my cycle, but he knew every single month we would be doing really, really good. And then all of a sudden, we wouldn't, and we would end up in a fight. And so it was really hard for us to go from these really, really highs to these really deep lows. So Jasmine, don't be scared, right? What I want you to do is be prepared. That's what I always tell my private clients. Don't be scared, be prepared, because what your partner is going to want to know is, do you have a plan for this? Like, if you tell your PMDD partner, like, hey, I have this disorder, even though it's not well known, but I have a plan for this. Have them listen to my podcast. I didn't have In Love with PMDD when I figured out that I had PMDD, but you do. So have your partner really listen to the podcast so he can see that it's something that happens to a lot of women, but also that you're willing to really do the work, right? You're willing to manage it. And it may help relieve him of what my PMDD partner was going through, kind of wondering like, what is going on every single month? Because my PMDD partner literally said, do you hate me? Like, is it that you don't want to be with me? It got to the point where he was thinking that, he was the problem. And a lot of times I always say your partner is not the problem. PMDD is the enemy, not your partner. But what really happens is when you tell your partner, Jasmine, that you have PMDD, you're going to be able to redirect all of that frustration and kind of figure out what's going on with you to PMDD. So you have an outside entity instead of it being one or the two of you. You don't want your PMDD partner thinking that you have a problem with them, or you don't really like them, or you don't want to be with them, because that's not the case. But if that's something that you really need help with, DM me. I got you, because I know how that is. But the first thing I would say do is just let them know. It's gonna be a weight off of your shoulders. So I don't know what you're doing to manage it right now every single month, because it can be a really, really lonely journey if your partner doesn't know that you have PMDD. I remember I had to I was trying to pretend, that I wasn't feeling how I was feeling, and it was putting a lot of pressure on me. And what happens is there becomes a lot of built up resentment, because you're resenting the fact that you can't share your struggle with your PMDD partner. Oh, thanks, Jasmine. Love you. Yeah, and so for you, AJ, if your partner was going through PMDD all last month, AJ, what I would say is know those triggers, right? Get to the bottom of what is really triggering her when she's going into PMDD or when she's experiencing those symptoms, because every month in PMDD is really, really different. But really I know it's annoying, right? It's annoying for the partner, because I remember in the beginning when I told my partner I had PMDD, he was like, why don't you just pretend like it's not there? Like, maybe you're just focusing on it too much. Like, there's all these things that partners have where they think that you can kind of, ignore PMDD or pretend like it's not there. So you have to get past that kind of, you got to get to that acceptance phase where it's like, I know we're going to be going through this, but look forward to the follicular days. Look forward to the good days. I know I'm on day 16, day 15 of PMDD. So it's almost in that good timing, but make sure that you're really celebrating when you get into your follicular days, and take notes. Always take notes of what you're triggered with or what your AJ said annoying. I know it's annoying because it's every single month, right? It's very cyclical. You're like, as soon as we're doing good, you kind of get that momentum. And then all of a sudden you can kind of see it in your PMDD partner. My PMDD partner literally says he can see when I'm in PMDD. Like, he says you look different, your eyes are different. AJ said, I forgot the why. Yeah. And it's like when your partner feels that there's a lot of tension, there's a lot of stress where they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going into PMDD. And your partner's like almost a little bit scared of it, because it's like, here we go again. Here we go again, like same stuff every single month. And if you don't have a plan, it's almost like you feel like it's going to blow up on you, right? You feel like, oh my gosh, like we're going to be arguing over the littlest things, or I can't get anything right, or it's always me. And right. So I would say the blaming is the biggest thing that, I have to work on. My PMDD partner has to work on, is when you are annoyed, when you're triggered because your partner's going into PMDD, don't immediately start blaming them. And if you blame anything, blame PMDD, not your partner. And that'll really help, because a lot of times it's easier for you to just go in and say, to your partner, like, oh, I'm going through PMDD. Like, let's be mad at PMDD together. Let's not be mad at each other. It's easier to have that outside entity than for you to genuinely be thinking that your partner is trying to trigger you on purpose, right? Trying to maliciously do all these things, right? And it's not a malicious thing. It's you're highly sensitive. And just think about it. When your partner has PMDD, they don't want it. Like, I don't want this. I would love to just pretend like I don't have PMDD, but I can't. But when you think about it, because sometimes if your partner is the one with PMDD, if they're acting differently, you can start to think that they're intentionally trying to cause you to suffer. Like, they know that you're suffering, but they're not trying to stop it. It's like, if you look at them like a child, like, oh, they're suffering, they don't want to go through this, they're going through a lot of pain right now. It helps you to be a lot more sensitive to them being annoying to you, to them irritating you, to them triggering you, and then think of it as something that you can just get through together. It's going to make you stronger, it's going to make you closer, or it can tear you apart. If you start to look at your PMDD partner as the enemy, like they're the problem, like you're not separating PMDD and your partner, you're kind of meshing them together. So if you're saying their name and you're saying like, oh, Rose is getting on my nerves. No, PMDD is getting on your nerves. PMDD is pissing you off. PMDD is annoying you. Your partner is suffering through that, but it's PMDD that's actually causing you and your partner to have this kind of cyclical fighting and everything like that. But I would say the first thing you do when you're coming out of PMDD, is you got to apologize, right? And that's something that I'm like, okay, I'm starting to come out of PMDD. I'm starting to feel the symptoms kind of taper off. And I know it's so hard to apologize for a version of yourself that you don't even really feel like is you. You're like, it's not me, it's PMDD. How am I supposed to apologize for things that I've said and done? The pride is there. With me and my PMDD partner, the pride was there. He didn't want to apologize. I didn't want to apologize. I felt like he was triggering me. He felt like I was triggering him. And so neither one of us were talking to each other. We went last week, I think it was like 4 days of not speaking, which is the longest that we've ever gone. And it was almost like that, who's going to be the first one to say something? Because I felt like I was still holding on to the hurtful words that he had said when he was triggered. But what started it? It's almost like not who started it in a sense of blaming. Hey, Carrie, not who started it, but what started it. And the first thing that started the trigger was me blaming. Like, I had to tell my partner about why I was triggered, but I asked for space. So if you know that when you go into PMDD, that you go into PMDD rage, or you have these intrusive thoughts and you have these, you may need to take some space and time when you're dealing with those emotions. But if your partner, you have to have that agreement with your partner, meaning if it's going to trigger your partner to take space, because that's what happened with my PMDD partner. I said I needed some space to really process my emotions. And he was like, what does that mean? Like, he was like, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean you need space? Because for some PMDD partners, space means you're completely like going away. Like, you're not coming back. And I'm like, no, I'm going to come back, but I'm going to come back when I've processed all of this stuff that's spinning in my PMDD brain. But you have to communicate when you're going to come back, when you're going to talk about it. Talk to you later, AJ. Love you. I'll tell Miss V you said hi. Yeah, I'm going to get off here soon because I got to go work out. But I would say take that space and time that you need. Really, really take the space and time that you need. And when you come back, apologize. Because if you're going to be in that stuck place where nobody's talking, if you're in that place right now where pride is holding on to you, where you're like, I don't feel like I should be the one to apologize because they did this and they did that. Don't do like we just did last week and spend 4 or 5 days. Because in that time, you're consistently thinking about what your PMDD partner is thinking. You're making up stories in your mind that are probably not what your PMDD partner is really thinking. You're making up those stories. Instead of making up those stories, actually sit down and have a conversation with your PMDD partner. This is what I do with all of my private clients. I schedule these appointments, and because it has to be very strategic. It can't be when you're rushing. Like, if you're rushing and you're stressed out and you're experiencing all of these PMDD symptoms, this is not going to be the time where you really need to sit down and have this conversation. I want you to have this conversation at a time that's convenient for you and your PMDD partner. So I know my PMDD partner, he likes to go to sleep really, really early, can't have conversations late at night, even though I'm a night owl. And first thing in the morning, I have a morning routine. So that's not a good time. So midday is a really good time for us to have a conversation and have some ground rules. Like, we're going to have this conversation. One of the ground rules for us is you're not going to curse at me. Right. I understand there's heightened emotions, there's all this, but that's a trigger for me. I have a lot of childhood trauma where I was verbally abused. So cursing is like a trigger for me. So you have to figure out, what is your trigger when it comes to having these hard conversations with your PMDD partner? What is your trigger? Like, really, really think about, is it yelling? For some of my private clients, is yelling. Like, one of the ground rules for having this conversation may be like, you know what, when we have this conversation, you're not going to be yelling at me. And if it gets to a point where it gets heated to the point where you can't really, communicate without yelling, I'll put you right here. When you get to the point where you feel like you can't communicate without yelling, that's the time where you take a pause. And it's not like you're cutting your PMDD partner off. You're just remembering those ground rules. So again, the first thing for me was no cursing because of my childhood trauma. Explain to your PMDD partner why you have these triggers. Don't just say, I don't want you cursing at me. Say, hey, I want you to understand, when you curse at me, it triggers my childhood trauma. If you're in that place where you don't know why it's something's a trigger, then that's something that we can work through together. But just communicate that to your PMDD partner so they don't feel like you're picking on them. And the next thing is, you're scheduling a time where it's convenient for the both of you and you're not having a lot of distractions, right? You're not having the kids run in and out. You're not doing a lot of things. You're just literally dedicating this time and you're sitting with your PMDD partner to address what you're triggered about. So you're not allowing it to build up when you go into PMDD. And then that way, when you're going to talk about it, you're talking about it at the lowest level. Because what happens when you're ignoring your triggers, they start to pile on top of each other, like again and again and again. And then you're looking at your PMDD partner with the squinty eyes and you're like, you're trying to trigger me, like you're causing me suffering. This is when you really begin to think that your partner is the enemy and not PMDD. If you listen to this week's podcast, I'm literally explaining to you tools on how you really understand that PMDD is the enemy, not your partner. Separate the two. So when you're communicating your triggers to your PMDD partner, let them know that. Say, I know that this is PMDD, not I know that this is my PMDD, because I know it's so hard for you to really take ownership of some horrible behavior or some horrible intrusive thoughts that you may be having in your mind. Address PMDD like it's a separate entity. Like, PMDD is causing me to feel like this. Not you're causing me to feel like this, you're doing this and you're doing that. That's when you're pointing the finger and you're the blaming. And that's what's going to cause your PMDD partner to get really defensive. And they're going to be on high alert and they're going to lash out at you. But I really just want you to just separate the two. Say, PMDD is causing me to feel like this. And give your PMDD partner, hey, Sarah, and give your PMDD partner the benefit of the doubt. That's what I had to do with my PMDD partner. I literally, and I want you to really think this and feel this and believe this when you're talking to your PMDD partner and say, I know that you weren't trying to trigger me. I know that you weren't trying to trigger me, but this is how I'm feeling because I'm in PMDD. Meaning, if I'm not in PMDD, this may not have bothered me before. A lot of times my PMDD partner swears up and down that when I'm not in PMDD, the snoring that he does, the annoying snoring that he does, he's like, when you're not in PMDD, it doesn't bother you. And the truth is, it does bother me, but just not as much. So really be in that mode of explaining it and being like, yes, you know what? I have misophonia. I have a sensitivity to noise when I'm in PMDD. So I know that you're not trying to maliciously cause me to suffer when you're sleeping. Because he's like, I guess you just don't want me to breathe. And I'm like, I know you have to breathe, but just explain it like that. PMDD is causing me to listen and hear your snoring louder, and it's causing me to suffer, but I know you're not doing it on purpose. And then that's when you get to the solution. Like, what is the solution to this? And now your PMDD partner is in a place to where they're like, okay, you're now working together on whatever issue that you're having. Okay, so let's find a solution together. Versus, oh, you're blaming me. What about you? If your PMDD partner starts to say, oh, I'm doing this, what about you? What was your part? You did this, you did this. That means they're getting defensive because you initially started blaming them. So that's when you take a step back. Give your PMDD partner the benefit of the doubt and say, I know that you're not meaning this. You're not meaning to cause me suffering, but right now I'm suffering because this is going on. I love you, but we got to figure this out. I love making that statement because then my PMDD partner feels empowered, like he's in it with me. Like, yeah, babe, we do need to figure this out because they're probably suffering too. They're really, really suffering too. So when you're like, I love you, babe, we got to figure this out. Like, I know that you're probably not happy with this right now. I'm not happy with this right now, but so let's figure this out. Versus you're doing this and then you shut down on them and you're doing that and you're triggering me and you use I statements and separate it from PMDD. So I'm going to be coming on here all week. I will see you again tomorrow. Make sure that you listen to this week's podcast, which is PMDD is the enemy, not your partner. Remember that. PMDD is the enemy, not your partner. If you missed the beginning, go back to that. Wow, this is eye-opening, especially from the partner's perspective. Yeah, you're welcome, Sarah. You're welcome. Yeah, I'm going to be bringing my partner's like perspective on here a lot more because I know that it helps. But I will be on here again tomorrow. Bye, Jasmine. You are very welcome. I love you. Okay, I will talk to y'all tomorrow. So I'm going to be on here. So I'm in California, so it's going to be 5 o'clock my time, I guess 8 o'clock, but put the little bell on. If you want to see when I'm going to be going live, it's going to be 5 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So I don't know whatever time that is for you. But oh, I'm so glad this helped you, Carrie. I'm so glad. I'm going to be on here tomorrow. If you're not following on Facebook as well, I just started this. A page on there. It's just find me on Facebook too. It's free private group. Dr. Rose Alcaton on Facebook. I'll put it down here in the comments, but I will see you. Hey, Shy Girl. I'm glad this is helpful. I'll be on here tomorrow. So I'll see you then. Love you. Bye. I hope this PMDD episode helped you and your partner in your struggles within your relationship. And if this is something that you know that you need help with and you need further support, individualized support, make sure you're going to inlovewithpmdd.com and you're getting those private sessions to really work through what you're going through in your relationship, specifically in regards to PMDD. And also, I want you to leave a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts. What this does is it helps other PMDD sufferers and partners find this show that can help them get these free PMDD relationship tools. I remember what it felt like to not know that there were tools out there specifically for PMDD relationships. So I want to make sure that you are sharing these tools with others, share them on your social media, share them with people that you know that are also struggling in their PMDD relationships. Until next episode, this is Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist. One more thing, I almost forgot. I now have the Fresh Start PMDD Partners Workbook. What this workbook can do is if you've had past traumatic experiences with your partner, past fights, past arguments, and they keep coming up every single month in PMDD, I created a Fresh Start Workbook so that you can deal with all of the traumatic experiences that have happened in the past in PMDD rage and all of these things so you can stop going through the same cycle again and again and again. So get that workbook. It comes with a video episode of the actual podcast that I recorded on getting a fresh start in your PMDD relationship. So you're not continuing the same cycle again and again and again. So make sure that you get that workbook. And if you need those individualized counseling sessions, you know where to go, inlovewithpmdd.com. Until next time, we got this. Love you.